So, you want to leave the good old United States of America. I get it, over 9 million Americans already have. I'm one of them. But the question you have is how? How to leave, how to do it as fast as humanly possible, and how to do it so you never have to go back. I've got you covered. Shalom, my name is No Limit Eddie. I'm an American who moved to Africa at 21 years old. And I've documented the last 4 years of my travel journey right here on this YouTube channel to make your move to Africa even easier. If that sounds interesting to you, then drop a like on today's video. Okay, so the first thing you have to realize, right, is that moving out of America is a journey. And we all know that cliche saying, a journey of 1,000 miles starts with the first step. But one thing that saying misses is that before you even take that first step, you need to put on your shoes, right? You need to be prepared. And so when it comes to this journey of moving outside of America, it's not so much about putting on your shoes as it is about fixing what's in between here, your mindset. Because there's 9 million US citizens that live outside of America, but there are 340 million Americans in total. Meaning that, just statistically speaking, 97% of people will never do what you're trying to do. It is an abnormality to make this move and to sustain it. And you have to realize that going into it. So that all starts with having the right mindset and believing in yourself enough to say, I'm going to take on this challenge and I'm going to conquer it. I'm going to dominate it. I am going to succeed at it. Okay. But let's just assume you have the right mindset. Then what are the individual steps you must take? Well, the first thing you need to do is pick your country. I recommend don't just pick one country, but actually pick a list of countries, anywhere from 4 to 5. And you want to pick this list of countries based off of what is important to you. So you can think of things like the language. Some people move to a country where they want to speak English, or you may be learning Spanish and you want to move to a country where you can practice your Spanish and become better at that. Then you have other things, right? Like the proximity to the States. Maybe you are someone who really loves being around your family and you want to be able to quickly get a flight over. Topography. Right? Like, what do you want the land to look like? Are you somebody who's always lived inland and now you want to live by a beach? Are you someone who's always lived by the beach and now you want to live in a forest? Are you someone who always lived in a forest and now you want to live in a desert? Think about what kind of lifestyle you want to live and what topography or landscape you want to be surrounded by. And a final thing people like to kind of take into consideration when picking countries is the social life, right? So depending on your current standing in life, if you're married, if you're single, if you have children, right? Like, you're going to choose a place that actually fits in with the life that you're having. So now you have a list of something like 4 to 5 countries that you should be happy to live in. So how do you then choose the one country that you're actually going to move to? Most oftentimes it comes down to the next step, which is looking up and researching the visa requirements. You see, moving to a new country is not just as simple as buying a flight and deciding to not leave. Like, you actually have to go through a legal procedure and process to get either a residency, to get citizenship, to get some kind of right to abode in that particular country. Without the proper visa, you could be thrown in jail, you could be kicked out the country, blacklisted, and prevented from ever coming back. So the visa is super important. All right. So the first thing you want to know is, like, what are all the visa options that are available? Normally, a Google search will tell you this rather quickly. However, the visa laws are quite hard to interpret most of the time, and it will be beneficial to have an immigration lawyer to help you out. However, in the beginning, you just need a general understanding, and Google will be enough. Now, once you know what visas they have, you need to know what visas you qualify for. See, every visa has different requirements that allow you to be eligible for it or not. For me, for example, I'm 26. There's a lot of countries I would love to live in that have a retirement visa. Yet, because of my age, I'm not actually eligible to qualify for a retirement visa. The youngest one I believe I've ever seen is 35 years old. And even with that, I'm about 10 years too young to apply. And again, Google is generally pretty helpful in knowing the basic qualifications for it. Let's say you find a visa that works for you, you qualify for it, you need to make sure that you can afford it. Now, this video is all about how to leave America and stay gone once you leave. But the biggest reason why, for most people, like, living and traveling the world only remains a dream is because of money. They don't know how they're going to make a living while living abroad. If you want to know how I make a living in any country that I step in the world using my laptop, click the very first link in this video's description and watch the free training that I put together for you. This training is only 10 minutes long, and if it resonates with you, you will have the ability to apply to speak with me. about the idea of us potentially working together. Again, you can go ahead and click the very first link in this video's description, or you can visit www.nolimiteddy.com/video. Many visas have income requirements or net worth requirements that are higher than most people have available. So for example, I know in Kenya, you need to have, I think, $100,000 in the bank, right? You need to actually deposit that, not from your own account, into a local Kenyan bank account, number one. Then number two, you also need to pay around $7,000 for a 2-year visa, right? So you're looking at $107,000, which is quite a lot of money to stay in a country for 2 years. Wouldn't you agree? Let's say you found a visa that's like, bang, this is for me. The last thing you need to do is you need to do research on what's actually happening on the ground. You see, because many countries have laws on the books, but when you go in person, the enforcement of that law may not be the same. See, for example, South Africa, they recently released a digital nomad visa, and I was quite excited about it. However, while the qualifications were there, the affordability was there, the on the ground, like, actual experience was not. See, Home Affairs is actually, that's a government agency that handles visas and everything like that. In South Africa, they are notorious for being untimely. And I've actually was just in South Africa living life in Uber rides, and they were complaining. I never mentioned anything about Home Affairs. They were complaining about Home Affairs. Yeah, I married a South African this amount of time ago. I still haven't got my visa. There were some South Africans themselves that were saying like they had to get a permit to be able to drive Uber, and if they don't have that permit on their car, their car is going to get towed. But the agency is not like they put the money in, they put the paperwork in, but they're not getting their paperwork back to have the sticker on their car, and so. Yes, the laws may be there, but the experience on the ground may not be keeping up with what they're saying on the books. So that's something you need to do some research on as well. Okay, so now let's assume you got the country, you got the visa, like everything is good, you found the particular country you're moving to. Amazing. Now you need to figure out what is going to be your cost of living. Yes, you need to be very, very granular to know how much you're going to be spending every single month when you're in that new country. There's a couple of good sites that can help you to do this, right? But you want to know about what's going to be your rent. How much you're going to spend on groceries? What about your transport? If you have children, how much are going to be the school fee? Now, you may be asking yourself, well, how will I find these numbers? There's two really good sites that are extremely accurate. I don't even know how they're so accurate, but one of them is called Numbeo, I don't know. And then the other one is Expatriation. Both of those sites right there I've used before, and when I went to the country, it was like spot on accurate. Now, those sites there will give you the basic information, groceries, milk, eggs, stuff like that. But you also are going to want to watch YouTube videos as well, because you're going to learn more about the spending culture of that country. So you see, some countries, like when I was in Tanzania, they expect you to pay your rent 6 to 12 months in advance. So while we may be used to paying month by month, and we think, okay, $500 a month, I'll pay it every month. No, some countries may expect you to pay 6 to 12 months up front. And so now that reframes how much you actually need to have that very first month of you living there. Remember when I told you earlier, you can't expect to be exceptional while doing average behavior? Is what separates those who succeed from those who fail. This is where the average person turns off their brain and just goes into zombie mode. Okay? So now that you have your monthly cost of living, you know exactly what it is. You're going to want to multiply that number by 1.5. Now, once you have that number that it results from that equation, the monthly cost of living times 1.5, you're going to need to figure out how to make that much money every single month. So whether that's coming from your retirement, and you know, okay, I'm going to spend $600 a month. My retirement every month is $2,000. Okay, boom, you're in the clear based off of that formula. However, if you're moving abroad and you don't have a stream of income, well, you need to create that stream of income, and you need to make at least 1.5 times what you're going to spend every single month. See, I saw this one video where it was the same exact topic as this: how I'll move abroad, how to leave America fast for only $5,000. And he made sure in the beginning of this video to say it wasn't $5,000 a month or $5,000 a week, it was just $5,000 flat total saved. How you can move abroad with that. And that actually is one of the reasons why I made this video, because that video led a lot of people astray, and it is leading people straight to the slaughter. You can even look in the comments of that video and you'll see like people were like, yeah, like I did this before and now I'm back in America. Like it's not a sustainable method. To move to a new country with no stream of income is not sustainable. And most of the visas that you're going to get, even if you qualify for a residency or anything like that, they don't always permit you the ability to go get a job. And if you can't get a job, most of these jobs don't pay anything, right? They don't pay very much money, especially for a lifestyle of an American coming over there. And so if you do want to know, okay, well, Eddie, you've been living abroad now for dang near 5 years, right? We're 3 months away from 5 years. What have you been doing to sustain yourself? Well, you can click the very first link in this video description, okay? And you can watch a 10-minute training video that I put together for you. The training is 100% free and it'll teach you a ton. Now, again, you can click the first link in this video description to watch it, or you can visit www.nolimited.com/video. And look, after you watch that video, if you feel like what I'm saying makes sense, you can actually book in a time to speak with me about us potentially working together. Now, next thing, you know the biblical saying, a man cannot serve two masters, right? And so you don't need to have a car and a house and these different bills that are still in the States while you're planning on living in Chile, right? Or you're planning on living in Argentina. You need to shut down your life in America. So go ahead and make sure you leave when your lease is over, right? Make sure you leave once you have, either you sell your car that you have. If you're still making payments on it, you can do something called a voluntary repossession. You don't need to have a storage unit. Like, do your very best to eliminate all your financial, physical ties to the States, right? Do your best to do that, because that was the one mistake that I made that caused me to have to go back to the States. I went back for like 6 days. I had a car that I was having on finance that I ended up doing the voluntary repossession on. I ended up giving it back to people who basically sold it to me, and that worked out great, right? I didn't owe any money on it. They ended up selling it for like a penny less than I owed, and so they just kind of forgave that debt. So that was great, but it was that, and it was also having like unnecessary accounts open that I'm paying money into. And a lot of people will have properties and they think, okay, I'm going to rent this property out while I'm overseas, and that's going to be how I'm making my money. What ends up happening is it ends up becoming more work to try to manage that property from overseas. And they always end up having to fly back, fix something, do something, because people they thought they can trust to handle this, they actually couldn't trust. It almost becomes more expensive to keep that property, right? And so unless you have maybe 3 or more apartments, or you have 3 or more doors, and you can have a property management company take care of that, it's usually just better to sell that property. Take the money, maybe you put it into the S&P 500, maybe you put it into the treasury market, right? And you collect your 9% on average, 4-5% from treasuries, and you just call it a day. The only time I recommend you keeping stuff in the States is if you plan on like doing like a bi-country living. You know, you live 6 months in the States, 6 months abroad, then that's fine. Keep your stuff there so that way you don't have to restart every single time you come back. I also have ways inside of my book, my Ultimate African Relocation Guide, that'll teach you like how to avoid your car being frozen, the best bank accounts to have while you're traveling abroad, to avoid legally ATM fees, things like that. The other thing you want to do is to make sure that you keep your American phone number, because your bank account is attached to that. Like, a lot of things are going to need that two-factor authentication app from your phone. And so you want to make sure you're keeping your American phone number. Inside of my Ultimate African Relocation Guide, I also tell you how you can keep your American phone number while living abroad for free. Yes, the amount of money that I've saved just by knowing this hack that I never reveal on YouTube, just by knowing this hack, will pay for that book for you 1,000 times over, because you're getting your same phone number for free. Okay, so pick up a copy of the Ultimate African Relocation Guide today. So the last thing that you need to do, guys, is pretty much just move. Okay, like you need to buy the flight ticket, you need to buy your luggage. If you don't have a passport, of course, get your passport, right? Like, you need to just do the required steps to go ahead and leave. And that pretty much is how you move out of America as fast as humanly possible. You see, to do it right, you have to do all those steps that I mentioned. And this may take you months, may take you years, especially if you try to do it all on your own. But if you use the resources that I mentioned in this video, my Ultimate African Relocation Guide, and you work one-on-one with me to set up the income side of things, you can get it done a lot faster because you're able to use and navigate using my own experience. Either way, I have over 4 years worth of content on this YouTube channel, so don't stop here. Watch the video where I explain why Egypt is my favorite country I've ever lived in.